Hey Buns, so with all of the Media Tour information sort of out there in the open now, I wanted to go over some of the most shocking revelations that we got from all the press, the videos, the articles, the interviews with Naoki Yoshida, you name it. What was the most crazy new stuff that we learned about? Because I'll tell you, even though I was at the Media Tour, there was some stuff I found out that surprised even me. And so I really want to go through all of that with you, people that might have not been going through every single interview as carefully as I have, so that way you can get all caught up on stuff that could be surprising. I do want to give a really big disclaimer here that Media Tour footage of jobs and stuff that is all in development still, and it is still subject to change up until the launch of Endwalker. So keep that in mind. And, you know, when Naoki Yoshida is talking about different plans and stuff that he'd like to add to the game, like a lot of this stuff might be sort of up in the air still. So, just remember that as we go through some of the comments that he made about potential upcoming content. So for me, I think one of the biggest reveals was that Final Fantasy XIV is the most profitable Final Fantasy game of all time. Now, this is actually something that they told us as soon as the Media Tour event started. Like, we heard a speech from Naoki Yoshida in which he revealed this to all of us. And I mean, at first I was really surprised because Final Fantasy as a series is legendary. Like, who hasn't heard about Final Fantasy? And to know that Final Fantasy XIV has done so well among this distinguished cast of like some of the best role-playing games ever made. I mean, that's awesome. I can't help but wonder if that's actually what caught the attention of the father of the Final Fantasy franchise, Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is now actually playing Final Fantasy XIV. Like, he showed a picture of his Lalafell character. Somehow or another, we all end up on that wagon, don't we? Hey, you're finally awake. But I mean, let's be real for a second, because we all want to believe that it's the sub fees, right? Driving the profit of this great game that we all love. It's just such a good game that so many people are subbing, and it's just from that that the game is so popular. But we know what it really is. It's the cash shop. Okay, it's the cash shop. I don't know anyone who doesn't know at least one person who's a different race every single time you see them. Like, you look away for 2 seconds, they're already a different race. Like, I'm getting whiplash from some of these people looking up at Elizabeth. Oh, you're Lalafell. Oh, you're Hrothgar. Oh, you're Lalafell. People that treat playing a Lalafell like an actual game of hot potato. Those things aren't cheap either. A Fantasia's what, $7-8 a pop? And I'd like to think that that money goes straight back into the development of Final Fantasy XIV, right? But like, maybe every little Fantasia helps them build one more little crater on the moon. But I don't know how any of that stuff works. Oh, and then there's, like, don't even start it. There's mounts, there's cute outfits, which I mean, I've done my fair share of buying cute outfits on Mox Agent. And there's weddings. I mean, there's a ton of money, I'm sure, being spent every single day on the weddings because, I mean, I know a lot of people get married more than once. The eternal bond ain't all that eternal. What I wanted to say is that the cash shop is a gold mine, or I guess it's a gil mine, if you are one of those people that are buying job skips to get gil. Please don't do this. Please don't do this, okay? There are better ways. The next thing I wanted to mention is a little vague, and this comes from my interview with Naoki Yoshida, which was awesome. I was so excited to actually have a chance to talk to him, the man, the myth, the legend, Naoki Yoshida. I actually got to interview him. Oh my gosh, that was so cool. So if you haven't seen that interview, you can check it out. In the description box, I'll put a link to it, where I am like fangirling it so hard that even he's like, get a load of this. But he talked about something that was hidden from us in the Media Tour. And this was really weird, really vague, really obscure thing that he said, but I just cannot stop thinking about it because it is so weird. And so it's just kind of stuck in my head as this weird mystery, this puzzle that I don't know what it means at all. So let me just refresh you in case you didn't have a chance to watch the interview yet. Link below. But I asked him about a comment that he had made in a previous interview in which he discussed the platinum color theme for Endwalker. Okay, so he had said that Shadowbringers had unique light weather conditions. Now, this was in the previous interview, okay, that I read about. And he had been preparing another surprise for players once again in the game that would involve, quote, adjusting the game to fit the color theme. And now when I asked him this, like pretty much word for word, he said, oh, I should avoid spoilers like that. I gotta be more careful. Okay. And then he got really mystical about the moon and like how in the moon, in the light of the moon, there's a fleeting moment in which it's platinum just before it's turning yellow or gold. It's like this really brief moment in time. And the specific color is sort of the driving theme color for Endwalker. But he did say that there's nothing really in terms of the in-game colors that you would recognize as platinum. But there's two keywords that he didn't tell a single living soul about, not on the Japanese team, not even Foxconn heard about what these keywords are. And these keywords, along with this color, have been guiding his vision for Endwalker, and maybe we'll even know what they are by the end. Then he said, quote, in the game itself for the media tour, I had made sure to hide those areas where color plays a part and would surprise the player. But do rest assured, that actually is there. So you're just going to have to wait for Endwalker and find out and be surprised yourself. So I think this means that like they didn't let us see zones in which this hidden thing was. But yet he said it's not in terms of in-game colors. You wouldn't recognize it as platinum. Yet it has something to do with that. It has something to do with this color from the moon, the real moon. I am losing my mind over this. There's so many layers to this secret, right? There's a passcode that not a single person on this planet knows about. There is something hidden from us in the media tour so that it would be a surprise when we all play. And it involves this color that I don't know if I've ever seen before in my life. It's a sort of color between colors only seen in the pale moonlight for the briefest of milliseconds. How does it fit together? I don't know. It's mystical, it's vague, it's not concrete, and that might be frustrating for some people who are hearing me attempt to describe it, but this is what I have for you. This is the riddle as it has been laid out to me. So other pretty crazy news that I heard about the island sanctuary. So I'm going to be really careful with the way that I phrase this because I don't want anybody losing their heads here about what I'm about to say. I don't want anybody to be like, oh, Zeppela confirmed 100% private personal housing island sanctuary because, look, maybe something was lost in translation. Maybe he was just really tired, or maybe it seems to me like this feels too good to be true. And I can't help but feel a little suspicious. And I want you to be suspicious as well at this time before we get official big announcements. But he said what he said. And this is from the interview that Mioni and Shenpai did. I'll put the link to this below. So let's just look exactly what he said, okay? I'm going to quote directly from the translator here. The concept is that you obviously have your own island. So you have at the start a blank canvas. And you're like, okay, what type of building do I want to place here? What type of materials do I want to gather? Maybe I want to let my minions run free in this island. Okay, so we're talking about placing buildings. That's pretty interesting. And minions running free as well. Can I have a bunch of copies of one minion running around? Like just only bunnies running around my island, right? Like 1 million bunnies. Sun's out, buns out. Well, it's not that kind of island. Not that kind of work. He went on to say, so of course there's content where there's a focus on the house, the garden, and the furniture. And I think there he's referring to the current housing content that we have in the game now. But this island sanctuary, you could see as a bit of a rank higher because there's a bit more broad things in there in the mix. So I'm hearing gardening, crops, minions, buildings, placing buildings. Is this private housing? I really want to get excited, but I'm also hesitant to allow myself to get excited because I'm like, this is just such a big, it sounds like housing 2.0, bigger, better housing, but I also feel like that's such big news. We should have heard about it by now. Why wouldn't they tell us about that before they told us about removing belts? It's something we should have heard about at the Endwalker announcement showcase a couple of months ago. So I'm a little suspicious, but I'm excited and I will believe it when I see it. But I'd really like to hear your take on this in the comment section. The next really crazy thing I heard about, the small scale hard content. Now, this is something I have been campaigning for on this channel for a long, long time. Usually anytime anybody asks me, what is something Final Fantasy 14 needs? I have been like, Mythic Plus, like something like small scale, small group content that's going to be challenging and hard. I know we have like, yeah, you can do deep dungeon with a small group, but after you've done that enough times, it kind of stops being difficult, right? So in Asmongold's interview with Naoki Yoshida, he had asked about potential challenging content for a small group, maybe 4 people, maybe even 1 person. Yoshida said, "We are trying to see if we can plan for something in that vein, but I'm afraid I can't divulge on the details at this time." Okay. We do plan on another live stream after Endwalker releases, a letter from the producer, and I'm hoping we can share some details and updates on that. But the possibility for sure is there. So just take a look at his facial expressions while this is being translated, because I felt like Yoshi P was like he had the face of someone who cannot say something, is not allowed to say something, but is giving you some hints like, like it could be, like that's the vibe I got from watching this. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Very possible. This is something I want very much, so I'm biased. Okay. But that's what I want to believe. I feel like he's just being a little coy, sending signals. But I don't know if we really need Mythic Plus when you can just join a party with me, because I'm like an affix on my own. So I want to talk about the big, huge job changes that are coming to some of the jobs, namely Monk and Summoner. Now, we already knew that they were going to be getting some big changes, but I think that with all of the media tour information coming out, it was kind of shocking to some of those communities to see just the extent of it and a lot of the more details about those changes. So I want to get into that. Yes, of course, we did already know about Sage and Reaper coming, so I'm not going to cover that. If you want to know about Sage and Reaper, I've got dedicated videos on those I will link to below. But for today, I wanted to talk about how shocking it was for these communities to find out how much their job has changed. And like for Summoner, it's unrecognizable to what it was before, and I imagine it will be quite a shock for people that are logging in after Endwalker and have been totally unplugged from all of the news. But I think it's going to be a good shock, because I played it and I loved it, but that doesn't mean some people won't log in and just be like, So we're going to talk about Summoner first, and I really wanted to know what the Summoner community thought about everything. Like, what are the people who are most invested and most dedicated to this job feeling right now, since it's pretty much changing to a whole new job? So I reached out to our friends at Awk Morning. That is a resource that I actually use to learn Summoner, and it's traditionally been a resource for caster guides. I think they're starting to branch out now. And I just asked what they thought about the Summoner changes, because, I mean, to me, you know, I'm more of a casual Summoner player, and I'm like, I see Garuda booty on demand. This is a quality redesign. The team got back to me and they said that Endwalker Summoner has an excellent aesthetic and thematic design, and that it's a very strong foundation with the rework, but they'd like a little more there to fill in the gaps. They said that the new summons and their elemental attunement actions provide some depth and choice, but play out in a strict manner. So basically, it's great that you can choose between Ifrit, Titan, or Garuda, but once you've done so, the best next buttons to press are pretty much set in stone. The general spell toolkit has been streamlined so that your main GCD choices are between 1 or 2 target spells or 3 or more target spells. And through this, it has incredible mobility. You've got a ton of instant casts, very few hard casts, and these changes are going to make the job a lot easier to pick up and play. Demi, Bahamut, and Phoenix will now automatically attack the target that you attack, which will make them a lot more responsive with their enkindles. But it does have a lack of OGCDs to use, where energy drain and 2 ether flow stacks a minute could be addressed with a shorter cooldown. Ruin 4 would warrant a change, as it doesn't mesh well in the kit. They also told me that they want everyone to feel encouraged, to feel excited by the Summoner rework, but they didn't want to sugarcoat potential issues either. So yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like the vibe was generally positive about it, with some reasonable concerns that I think are coming from the fact that, to me, the job feels like the framework for the house upon which they are going to be adding more Summoner spells and abilities in the coming years. Like, I feel like they maybe didn't want to add too many extra bells and whistles into the mix that could potentially break things and make the balancing way more complicated when it's like a brand new job entirely. I heard some concerns about Summoner maybe having too much mobility for what should even be allowed on a caster, but I mean, look, I'm a dancer main. Look, to me, there's no such thing as too much mobility, and if it means it breaks the boundary of what a caster should even be allowed to have, I'm fine with that too. But oh, and you get a res on top of it, so I mean, it's pretty hype in my opinion. The other job getting massive changes is Monk, though nowhere near as much as Summoner. Like, you will still recognize this job when you log in, but it's got sort of a mini game type system at the core of the new 6.0 gameplay, revolving around a masterful blitz, which is like you want to get different combinations of glyphs in your job gauge to pull off a really powerful attack. And it's totally new, and from what I've seen, the general reaction has been positive, but like with Summoner, I really want to know how the more hardcore part of the Monk community felt about these changes. So I actually reached out to Liz, who got World First Uwu and World First Eden's Gate on Monk. They also wrote a very in-depth document that I'll link to below for all the known changes to the job, expectations for the job in 6.0. So I will link that. But I asked Aya, like, how do you feel like, in general about what we know about Monk so far? And they said, gameplay-wise, there are things to like and things to dislike with the direction that they've taken with Monk. The blitz system is somewhat open-ended in terms of what could be optimal with it on any given fight, which is a breath of fresh air after the incredibly static burst windows of Shadowbringer's Monk. But leaving a Notman the same has been baffling to everyone when that skill can barely justify its own hotbar slot. And yeah, I mean, I'm no Monk main, but even I know about the meme status of a Notman. And there's some worry that Monk will feel empty outside of burst windows, since the basic GCD loop is the same it's been for many expansions, but now with fewer positionals and OGCDs to keep you on your toes. Yeah, a couple of the positionals are being removed from Monk. I actually spoke to another dedicated Monk main who also echoed these same concerns about a Notman being unchanged and super niche still, as well as worries that monks might even need a 25-second pre-pull before bosses to get their hardest hitting buttons in the opener. And I said, well, hey, look, hold up. It's a Mediator build. It's in development, subject to change, right? I mean, what if the potencies change? Would you still need 25 seconds on the pre-pull? And he didn't think that potency changes would make a difference at all. But we'll know for sure on launch, of course. He did say that in the Monk community, the overall vibe on the changes is a bit mixed. They seem very good at first glance, but it's in the theory crafting side of things. When it comes to openers and rotations, that's slightly worrying, especially if you're trying to play the job in an optimal sense. And if that's the case, Monk hasn't changed anywhere near as much as I thought. So what are you most hyped about from all of the Mediator information? What I've covered here today is just a small part of it. It's just stuff that stuck out to me the most, that I found, that I've been thinking the most about. And looking up at the moon at night, trying to see that platinum color and just asking myself, what does it mean? If you like this video, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon or on Twitch. You can also support the channel for free. Oh, but wait. I want to tell you that I have started a second channel called Zap Live. I will link that below, where I'm going to be posting all of my Twitch clips, my Twitch highlights and stuff. That's going to be on that separate channel. So if you are not able to always make it to my Twitch streams, well, that might be a handy thing to sub to. So anyway, yes, thank you for watching. You can support the channel for free just by clicking that subscribe button or by sharing this video with your fellow warriors of light. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.